Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tim's News Explosion for another week on this Monday, the 11th of December, 2023. Only 14 days until Christmas. It is the second last show for the year. Obviously, in a fortnight's time, it is Christmas Day, and then it is New Year's, so I'm taking Christmas and New Year off. Then I'm going to Adelaide for a week, having a break over the holiday period. We are live on the Wilmsfront YouTube, Odyssey, and Rumble channel. You can also send through a super chat in the comments on Entropy. Now I noticed that it's very slow, the stream and getting through to viewers at the moment. So if you're watching and and everything is functioning as it should be, then please leave a comment below. I'm still on my MacBook, which doesn't have a good central processing unit. I still haven't got my capture card fixed, so I can use my Flashbang Mac Studio. And so the reason I'm streaming on my MacBook is because it has the inbuilt camera, which seems to work on StreamYard. It is 9 p.m. here in Melbourne, Victoria, where it seems that summer is on one day and off the next. It was raining on the weekend, really loud. I shouldn't say loudly, it was, but certainly you got drenched quite easily. It was muggy today. Apparently it's going to swelter again later in the week. We had one hot day last week, but let's start up north, well, the traditional tropical region of Australia, Queensland. And now we saw the resignation on Sunday of the last remaining COVID-era Premier, Labor's Annastacia Palaszczuk, who has been in office since February 2015, won 3 elections. Now the Labor faceless men, they had been trying to tap her on the shoulder for many months to get her to stand aside before Christmas, because they didn't believe that she would win the 2024 state election, which is due the last Saturday in October. Labor was behind 47-53 in the polls, and the Liberal National Party opposition leader David Crisafulli was the preferred premier. Annastacia Palaszczuk, until her resignation, had given every indication that she was going to contest the next election, and had even put together a presidential style campaign video launch, a soft launch for the election next year. But on Sunday, she said, well, she used the National Cabinet meeting last week as a pretext that that's when she made the decision there, and made a tearful resignation speech, and a resignation will take effect from Friday.
I have given it my all, and I've run a marathon. Standing here today with these flags alongside and standing up for the people of Queensland has been an honour of my life. I don't believe anyone who comes after me will know how humbling it is travel this state and meet so many amazing people. I will finish this week, at the end of this week, as Premier, and the next Premier of Queensland is for caucus to decide on Friday, giving MPs time to come back. And soon the people of Queensland will have their say. I have fought the good fight, I have given everything. But now is the time for me to find out what else life has to offer.
Life is good. Life is so damn good. I mean...
Now, her tearful resignation didn't make people forget her COVID-era border cruelty and also her vaccine segregation. That is what she will most be remembered for. One of her worst, the worst effect of her COVID era policies. Well, she said she was about keeping Queenslanders safe, protecting health and protecting lives. Well, she only talked about keeping Queenslanders safe. She let a New South Wales unborn baby die because it was turned away from this pregnant mother. She had to wait 16 hours for emergency surgery in Sydney after being turned away at the Queensland border. She lived in Benalla, which is actually closer to the Brisbane CBD, where all the major hospitals are. Because if you know the geography of New South Wales, the mid-north coast, Northern Rivers, is closer to Queensland. And you remember that during Mother's Day and Father's Day, families, they could only celebrate through the makeshift border barriers that she had put up, because the border between Coolangatta on the Queensland side of the border and Tweed Heads, it goes through basically a series of houses. And so that was just one of many cruel decisions that she made. She forced those who'd had cancer treatments in New South Wales to quarantine in hotels when that wasn't what their doctors had recommended. Meanwhile, NRL and AFL stars, they could quarantine at 5-star resorts with their families. Remember, in 2020, she hosted the AFL grand final, because of course Melbourne was in its then second lockdown, and then the NRL grand final in 2021 because Sydney was in lockdown. Pella Conservative Australian says, unborn baby, that's too humanizing. Call it a clump of cells. And yes, that was also another one of her legacies, a legalizing abortion up until birth in Queensland. And so that edit of Palaszczuk's speech, that was a resignation speech that was put together by Anthony Khalifa, Australian versus the Agenda. And now the reason why she was nicknamed the Chook, and as I said, I pronounced her name as Palaszczuk, because that is the correct Polish pronunciation, but she told us that it was pronounced Palaszczuk. And so because she tried to, she told the Queensland people and the media to pronounce her name a different way. During COVID, she was simply known as the Chook, although yesterday Miss Piggy was trending on Twitter because, well, you can see the resemblance there. Palaszczuk, she also had the nickname the Chook because she had basically a neck like a chook. And she was compared to Miss Piggy because, well, for the last year of her reign as Premier, she had basically checked out and was more interested in being on the red carpet at Logies or other events for the elites. And of course, Miss Piggy, the diva from the Muppets, also liked being on the VIP lists and attending events, although I'm not sure Palaszczuk whether she she knew karate chops like Miss Piggy is famous for. And so there is only the last COVID era leader standing, and he's not a premier, the chief minister of the ACT, Andrew Barr. Now, he was the only COVID era leader to not implement a vaccine passport system. So Canberra and the ACT did not have vaccine passports, which was good, though Andrew Barr still locked down the ACT in late 2021 over a single case, which of course didn't stop the spread, like the same in New South Wales and Victoria. And he did mandate masks, but he was far from a tyrant. Which ACT is still a one-party state, though, because it is where all the public servants live, and they vote Labor and the Greens. It's a Labor Greens coalition. Andrew Barr faces an election next year, which is likely to be re-elected again. He's been the chief minister since 2014, since Katie Gallagher, the mean girl, resigned as chief minister to be the ACT senator in the federal parliament. So we're seeing Scott Morrison. He's still in parliament, but no longer prime minister. So Anthony Khalifa again, Australians versus the Agenda, put a list. So Dan Andrews, podcasting and golfing. Annastacia Palaszczuk just resigned. Gladys Berejiklian, Optus executive. Dominic Perrottet, he's still a backbencher in the New South Wales Parliament. Mark McGowan now is a consultant for BHP and Co. Stephen Marshmallow, well, he was voted out at the 2022 South Australian state election. He's now on the board of a US defence company. Peter Gutwein, the former Tasmanian Premier, he resigned, now the chairman of the Migrant Resource Centre, because of course that's exactly what we need at the moment, our politicians serving the migrant community. And Michael Gunner, remember Crazy Eyes Michael Gunner, if you're anti-mandate, you are anti-vax. He's now the lead in Fortescue Future Industries. So a lot of them from the mining states go into mining, except for Marshmallow. He is now with the military industrial complex, like the former federal defense minister from South Australia, Christopher Pan. So the question is now, with less than a year to go until the Queensland state election, who is going to succeed Annastacia Palaszczuk? So her deputy, Stephen Miles, he has put his hand up. He is known as the parliamentary head kicker, attack dog. He always went for the attack with against Scott Morrison and New South Wales during COVID. I should say he's Dr. Stephen Miles. He has a PhD in trade unionism. Jim Chalmers, the federal treasurer, he's also a doctor. He's got a PhD in Paul Keating. So he's put his hand up, Stephen Miles, and also the Minister for Health and Minister for Women, Shannon Fentiman. I almost mispronounced her name as fentanyl. Now, she is, of course, the Women's Minister who introduced pretty much gender self-ID in Queensland. So to change gender in Queensland, you just need a stat dec from two people who've known you for, I think it's 12 months. That passed the Queensland Parliament earlier this year. And of course, this was her answer to the question, what is a woman?
Be inclusive. anyone that identifies as a woman is a woman. And as the Minister for Women, I take a really inclusive approach, and we want to govern for all Queenslanders, but all people who identify as a woman are part of our policies and strategies to advance gender equality, because gender equality is inclusive. You know, it's not one group advancing at the expense of another. Let's be inclusive and bring everyone in.
So she's inclusive of everyone who identifies as a woman. And we are seeing, obviously, when it comes to women's sports, there's a lot of, advancement in women's sports because, well, there's biological men competing who are stronger than women. Now, Rick Nielsen has said Queenslanders can't escape the tyranny. The former chief health officer, that's Dr. Jeanette Young, is now the state governor. And of course, she was complicit in those hypocritical decisions to allow in footballers, celebrities, including Danny Minogue, while the ordinary plebs, they had to be in hotel quarantine or denied exemptions to travel into Queensland at all. So they have a better chief health officer now in Dr. John Gerard. Now down here in Victoria, we are thankfully rid of both Dan Andrews as Premier and his chief health officer, Dr. Brett Sutton. There was an appalling puff piece in The Age, which he talked about his time with Doctors Without Borders, or we made sure we didn't get shot by the Taliban, blah blah blah, and of course had some photos of when he was younger. So all those women who have the Brett Sutton cushions can have their hearts flutter for the choddy again. Now, Dan Andrews, he is back here in Victoria. It doesn't seem like the New York job maybe worked out for him or fell through. Now, he was at last week the National Gallery of Victoria Gala, and there was one of the women who attended decided to give him a piece of her mind about how much the lockdowns, his lockdowns, affected her and her children. And Dan scurried off with his wife, Kath, and made for an exit. But it clearly hurt Dan because he was on a podcast last week called Socially Democratic. So he's previously been on a golf podcast, and he addressed the people who call him Dictator Dan, and this was his response.
There's a lot to be said. Like, that's how you gather up wisdom, was by sitting and listening to people. And look, I locked people in their homes for 2 years. I know that, and I know that, dictator and all this sort of stuff. That's all fine. And if that makes people feel better by describing me in those terms, look, good luck. In Victoria, the haters hate and the rest vote Labor. And that's fine by me. That's fine by me. So call me whatever you want. But what really matters is not that nonsense, that noise, that vitriol, that after dark bullshit. And that's all that it is. The worst of American politics imported into ours. What really matters and what makes up for all the nonsense is when you sit with families like that and you listen and you say, righto, that's the plan, we're going to get on and do it. And then you do. And you can see the difference. You absolutely can see the difference.
So finish off there with a whole bunch of nothing, empty statement there. And he also, in that podcast, attacked the corruption watchdogs and criticized the recent Ombudsman report by Deborah Glass, which found top transport bureaucrats were kept in the dark about the $125 billion suburban rail loop. It could be as high as $200 billion. Dan Andrews said that they have their opinions and views. They're entitled to those, but they're not entitled to pretend that anyone voted for them. Also, Deborah Glass has done a report into the jobs for the boys, because James Molino, Dan's former deputy, is now the head of the suburban rail loop. Now, obviously, we all had a sigh of relief when Dan Andrews resigned as Premier. Jacinta Allen, she's a lot less of a cunt than Dan. Is probably her biggest asset. Though Dan Andrews, he was snapped yesterday at Carrum Downs shopping plaza, it seems, talking to the locals. Now, I know that shopping plaza well because it was in my 5-kilometre radius during Dan's lockdown. So it's one of the few shops that I could go to. Now, this shopping plaza is in the electorate of Dunkley, which there'll be a by-election for next year because of the sudden death of the Labor member, Peta Murphy, last week from cancer. And so when this photo was snapped, now talking to locals at a shopping centre, that's what candidates do. Is Dan Andrews considering entering federal parliament via the seat of Dunkley at a by-election? It'd still be classified as a marginal seat. I mean, Peta Murphy only won it on a second attempt in 2019, thanks to a redistribution. She increased her margin to 6.3% during the 2022 state election. Although Dan Andrews, of course, he's not a local. His electorate's 40 minutes up the road in Mulgrave, though I think he lives in Brighton now. That's where his primary residence is, allegedly, though I think he still has a home in Mulgrave. Though, obviously, Dan resigning as Premier, he doesn't have his state security anymore. So if he was to be the candidate, then how would he go on the campaign trail with all the cameras there every day, dealing with the public? And of course, any punter should feel entitled to ask him any question. Now, it was confirmed to 6 News last night, which is run by a group of teenagers headed by Leo Puglisi. And now, it might be run by teenagers, but it's still a more reputable news source than all of our legacy media. They got a tip from Labor insiders that Dan was being considered as a candidate for the seat of Dunkley. And Dan Andrews in Canberra, where if he was in the lower house, he could become Prime Minister. I mean, that sends chills down my spine. I'm not sure about the rest of you there, but well, would the rest of the nation cop him as Prime Minister? We know that Albanese is behind in the polls. If he was he's got to win the seat. There is a cost of living crisis, which is affecting outer suburbs like Frankston, where Dunkley is centred upon. So it wouldn't be a smooth sailing in, though he would probably be catapulted into the Albanese cabinet immediately. But Dan is still relatively young in political years, 51 years old. So we shall see. But yes, I was certainly shocked when I saw him in my local area yesterday. I don't want to see him around anymore. Now, moving on to federal politics. So last week, the Albanese government passed the preventative detention laws aimed at I should say, attempting to re-detain some of the 141 high-risk detainees who they released following the High Court's decision against indefinite immigration detention, but they have to make an application to the court for preventative detention. The maximum that a court can detain someone for, if they do, is 3 years, and it's reviewed every year. So there's no way that all of those 141 are going to be re-detained, and certainly none before Christmas. Though there are 6 who are back behind bars, and that is because they have reoffended. And the first couple broke last Monday, which was, of course, the Afghan refugee and convicted sex offender Aliwa Yawari, charged of indecently assaulting a woman at an Adelaide hotel. And then there's a second ex-detainee, Muhammad Ali Nadari, who was found with cannabis in Western Sydney. A third, Abdul Muhammad Alwad. So he has been charged with stealing luggage from a sleeping traveller at Melbourne Airport. Fourth, Emran Dard was arrested in Dandenong for allegedly breaching his reporting obligations as a sex offender. He was a leader of a local grooming gang before his release, and was convicted for that. He was allegedly talking to children on TikTok. So fifth detainee was arrested in Queensland on an outstanding warrant seeking to return him to prison in New South Wales for breaching parole conditions over an earlier conviction for assault. So the federal government didn't even do their due diligence to see if there was any outstanding warrants on the criminals that they released. And then another one has been charged with breaching the curfew and wearing the ankle bracelet. Now, the laws that beefed up the visa requirements, including the curfew and the ankle bracelet, they are being challenged in the High Court by the head of Refugee Legal, David Mann, who argues that they are punitive, which he claims only a court can issue punishment. That was what the High Court ruled, that only a court can pass a sentence. So there is going to be a challenge on that. When you listen to David Mann in his various interviews, he makes your blood boil, because he basically tries to downplay these people, the release of these people, saying, oh, there's people in Australia who are released after their time in prison after similar sentences, and this is an only small cohort who can't be deported, which would usually happen. And also, who makes my blood boil is Dr. Kim Rubenstein of the University of Canberra. When I heard her on Radio National, she said that we shouldn't discriminate against people who haven't been able to win the lottery of life by being born in Australia. We need to think of a global community. That's not a legal opinion. That's basically her political philosophy there. And of course, these people like David Mann and Kim Rubenstein, they seem to live in an ivory tower where they have their legal idealism and their legal theory. But of course, when it comes to what happens in the real world, it's completely different to their idealism, and ordinary people are the victims, like that woman in Adelaide, who was allegedly the victim of the indecent assault of that Afghan refugee. Now, even though Claire O'Neill and Adam Giles said that we didn't want this decision, if it was up to us, they'd all be in prison. But it turns out that the Attorney General, Mark Dreyfus, he actually allowed the Human Rights Commission to lobby on behalf of the plaintiff in this case, NZYQ. Remember, the Rohingya Muslim who was convicted of raping a 10-year-old boy. Dreyfus allowed them to lobby for this to the High Court for this precedent to be overturned in response to a letter from the Commission President Rosalind Croucher. So it seemed that Mark Dreyfus, but he was happy for a taxpayer-funded body to lobby for a decision against what the government had wanted. It seems to be quite contradictory there. And Mark Dreyfus, he appeared at a press conference last Wednesday with Claire O'Neill and Andrew Giles, and you've probably all seen it. His response to Sky News journalist Olivia Casely when he was asked about whether the Australian people were owed an apology given what's happened with these alleged reoffenders.
Do you owe an apology to those in the community that have been subjected to misdeeds by some of these individuals?
Olivia, the reason that these people have been released from immigration detention is because the High Court has made a decision that means it is illegal for us to continue to detain them.
I want to suggest to you that that question is an absurd question. You are asking a Cabinet Minister, 3 ministers of the Crown, to apologise for upholding the law of Australia, for acting in accordance with the law of Australia, for following the instructions of the High Court of Australia. I will not be apologising for upholding the law. I will not be apologising for pursuing the rule of law, and I will not be apologising for acting. Do not interrupt. I will not be apologising for acting. I will not be apologising for acting in accordance with a High Court decision. Your question is an absurd one.
Okay, I think we'll move on here. Yep.
What a piece of shit. And Lady of Shalott, unfortunate for her, Mark Dreyfus is her local member, has said he is so arrogant, ring up his office and get ready to be spoken to like shite. And as far as I know, he doesn't actually live in his electorate, and you could see the high and high and mighty attitude that he took. You're speaking to officers of the Crown. We will not apologize for. Again, he's having that legal idealism and legal theory that we're not apologizing for upholding the rule of law and complying with a High Court decision, even though you could have had, in case the High Court ruling went against what we think that you wanted. I mean, with Mark Dreyfus, it seems was it's confused about whether the government wanted this decision overturned or not. But they did have no legislation ready to go. They just released these people, and I remember at the time Claire O'Neill and Andrew Giles, they just shrugged their shoulders and saying, oh, this is what we have to do. It was only because of pressure from the opposition and outrage in the community. And I know that politicians don't like to apologize for things. I mean, Dan Andrews always said, I make no apologies for keeping people safe. But Dreyfus saying, we are not going to be apologizing. We're not even going to be expressing our sorrow or empathy with the alleged victims here. Just say we did the right thing, and these things we're not going to address. It's absurd question. I mean, it seems like he was basically shouting at the people of Australia. You don't understand why the way things are, and it was an appalling look. And there were the usual Labor drips on Twitter who were apologists for Dreyfus, saying, "Oh, the press gallery have glass jaws," and he just recently, his wife had recently died, so give him a break. He should still be professional. He was the one whose response was unbecoming. And the sooner he retires, he's in his late 60s, the better. He's always been a piece of work. And despite him being a Republican, he still calls himself a King's Counsel, not a senior counsel. Now, he did apologise to Sky News journalist Olivia Caisley. There were a few members of the opposition, including Dutton and Lay, who said there was a misogynistic streak to Dreyfus's sprayed Olivia Caisley. Wouldn't speak to a man like that. Though I do remember Scott Morrison losing his cool at Andrew Clennell one time when questioned over the Brittany Higgins allegations back in 2021, and said that you'd be aware that there'd be somebody in your own organization who was investigated for harassment in a female toilet. And what that actually was about in the end was that Samantha Maiden had confronted another female News Corp journalist in the women's bathroom, and it was over. If I just bring up the story here, so. It was to do with two News Corp journalists, I think, going over to competing for the same press gallery, a press club position, and Sam Maiden was basically saying we shouldn't have two News Corp people running in competition with each other. That's what it was all about. But Scott Morrison was trying to make it out that there's been an incident in your or organization as well. That was so a male politician has snapped at a male reporter, though the ultimate test, like I told you about, the Labor apologists for Dreyfus, and of course they don't like Sky journalists, right-wing network. I remember these same people 10 years ago, they all went off at Tony Abbott for being a misogynist when he was being repeatedly this journalist, Bridie Jaber, was repeatedly putting questions to him and talking over him. And he said, "Look, calm down, Bridie." And so that was, he's telling a woman to calm down, implying she's hysterical. And so that was a big apparent misogynistic moment. But apparently Dreyfus gets a free pass from the left, and the question that the Sky News journalist asked, he was right all along. It was an absurd one. So that was the one. The migration debacle from last week. Let's move on to this week's migration debacle, and that is, Anthony Albanese on Saturday. He said that we needed to get migration down to sustainable levels, and it reminded me of Julia Gillard's soundbite when she was Prime Minister, talking about a sustainable Australia, not a big Australia. And so we had 2 days after Albanese hinted at, a pivot, she announced today it was pledged as a crackdown on rorting and import skills. And of course, so the phrase was returning net migration to normal levels, because we had 500,000 net migrants in the last financial year. And so the federal the federal government, they said, look, next year it was projected to be 440,000 net migrants, but with our new 25 policy commitments, we're going to slow that down to a more sustainable 375,000 and get it down to 235,000 by 2026-27. The last non-COVID year, 2018-19, the net migration a number was 239,000. So there's still going to be around about 250,000 net more people in Australia every year. So that is certainly not a slowdown. And so the changes which well, you'd basically just call sort of window dressing, that, it's a crackdown, but we're still going to have hundreds of thousands of people coming into Australia net migration this year. So it's a crackdown on international student visas. So she's pledged a crackdown on the back doors that allow people to visa jump and attend ghost colleges, because that has been going on for years, that many are from India, China, other Asian countries, come here to study, and then have used that as a backdoor way to work and then get permanent residency into Australia. Now, obviously, on an individual level, I mean, Australia has better living standards than those countries. I mean, you can understand on an individual level why many of those young people want to come here. Some of my best friends have come to Australia via this backdoor way of study and then working and then getting permanent residency, and sometimes even citizenship through a migration agent. Even though they end up staying here, they still, and some get Australian citizenship, they're still not Australian, and many of them admit that they're not Australian. They don't integrate. They still have their loyalties to their home country. They still mainly practice their own culture, and only socialize a lot of the time with people from their own culture in Australia. And of course, another way that net migration has increased through family reunion provisions. That's another rort there. And going back to this story, the real I would say alarm or obvious change that shows that this is not a real migration reduction is that they're going to be fast tracked those who are deemed to have high schools. There of course is there's always changes to the skilled work visa program, and so offering more paths to permanent residency for a new skills in demand visa program, and developing a specialist skills pathway that the government says will drive innovation and create jobs and import migrants to fill those jobs. The pathway will remove occupation lists for jobs that pay above $135,000 and remove the government forecast will add 3,000 skilled workers worth $3.4 billion to the budget bottom line over coming decades. Again, it's about the revenue. So Claire O'Neill said, especially in healthcare, the digital economy and jobs needed for the transition to net zero. And this is where, if you weren't alarmed about that this is basically a fake change, the Business Council of Australia chief executive was there, and so was the Australian Council of Trade Union assistant secretary, and the national secretary were there as well. When big business and big unions get together, you know that the ordinary Australian, the little guy, has been screwed over. Now, to Lotus in the chat, can all of you please stop talking about auditing Australia? Why are you talking about another YouTuber while you're in here? I mean, I do this show to bring you the news. I don't even watch auditing Australia. So I enjoy your participation, but please keep your comments relevant to the news explosion. So yes, this is basically a big nothing burger tinkering around the edges. Now, last week at the National Cabinet meeting, when apparently Annastacia Palaszczuk suddenly decided she wanted to resign. That was mainly about reforming the National Disability Insurance Scheme, more like the National Disability Insurance Scam. So that is, you remember 10 years ago, when Julia Gillard, she knew she was going to lose the next election, but wanted to leave a legacy. The National and Disability Insurance Scheme, she signed all the states up to that, locking in insane amounts of spending into the budget, a real booby trap for the incoming Abbott government. And it was at the time, it was the budget. It was only supposed to cost the budget 14 billion, and would only have 400,000 participants. But fast forward a decade, this year it'll cost 35.5 billion, and the NDIS will become the biggest budget expense, more than the defense budget and the age pension. So if it's not reined in, it could cost taxpayers in the vicinity of $100 billion every year. And because there are independent NDIS providers, when there's a big pot of money, billions and billions of dollars, the fraudsters and the rauters, they come out wanting some of our money. And so there's been NDIS services funded by the taxpayer for crystal therapy, dolphin therapy, overseas cruises, even visits from prostitutes. And the biggest, the biggest growth diagnosis for participation in the NDIS is children with autism, or another term that's been used, developmental delays. Now, in my opinion, autism is way too readily diagnosed. I mean, if a child is a bit eccentric, or a bit slow, or a bit socially awkward, autism diagnosis. There's even adults who are now diagnosed. You've been autistic all along. And then also there's a lot of kids who are hyperactive, diagnosed with ADHD, and then they're drugged on Ritalin, which has been an absolutely abhorrent modern big pharma development. And so part of the agreement that the NDIS Minister Bill Shorten struck with the states is that to cut down on the amount of children with autism being put on the NDIS, the states will basically resume how schools and other educational support services treated or accommodated students with autism in the past. So teachers' aides, that sort of thing, mainstreaming them in schools. I mean, I remember when I was at school, there was there were teachers' aides who'd help children who had developmental or physical disabilities. I thought that was a good system. I 100% support mainstreaming, and I really think that, like I said, I'm not a believer that the incidence of autism has increased, but certainly the diagnosis has, and we're all a bit different. Some of us are more socially awkward than others. Some are just like social butterflies. They have the gift of the gab. We're all different in a way. Why do we need to medicalize all different personalities? Now, another Gillard legacy, when I say legacy, budget legacy, she locked in what was termed the Gonski funding, 320 billion extra taxpayer dollars in school funding. It was by David Gonski, and it was basically throw more money at education and you'll get better results. Well, let's fast forward 10 years, and we're actually doing worse in the PISA rankings in mathematics, science, and reading, and of course places like Singapore, Japan, Korea, Taiwan. All of those tiger Asian countries where there's a lot of emphasis on academic achievement, they are shitting all over us, and we are basically down in the mid-level territories. Nations like Poland and Ireland are ahead of us. The UK, although we are still doing better than New Zealand, so at least it's good in that regard. But yes, spending 300 extra, if you divide that by 10, $32 billion extra every year for worse results. Now, there was a lot of talk during the Voice referendum how we need a audit of where the $40 billion in Indigenous funding is going. What about a audit, and where does this money go to? This extra $32 billion nationally into the school system. Where's it going? Like, is it just going to more bureaucracy, to some more whiz-bang tech fads or something? I'd like to know where it is going, since we're having worse results here. Again, like, I hope that we are moving towards scrutinizing extra spending more, and at least it was good that Bill Shorten has realized, since he became the NDIS minister, much more proactive in getting rid of the rorts and reining this program in, even though it was a monster that he helped create when he was part of the Rudd-Gillard governments. Now, let's move on to, well, there was a big front page in the Sydney Morning Herald last Thursday by investigative journalist Kate McClymont, who spoke to 5 men who alleged that talkback radio king and now a alternative media host, Alan Jones, and also former rugby league coach, and before that former teacher, 5 men accused him of sexually groping them on the crutch and kissing them. So one was a former 2GB driver, one was a former musician. It was a musician who Alan Jones mentored. One was a tech whiz kid, Alex Hartman, who's now deceased. One was a waiter, and one was a young man who actually reached out to Jones to have him mentor him because they grew up in the same town. And now there's been rumors and innuendos about Alan Jones for years. He was arrested in the late 80s in a London public toilet block for outraging public indecency, though the charges were dropped. Now, there was a 2006 biography published by Chris Masters called Jonestown. He was also one of the reporters who did all the reports on Ben Robert Smith's alleged war crimes. So he's been around for a number of years. Now, this Jonestown book, although it didn't accuse him of sexual misconduct, it had former students at the schools that he taught. So he taught at the King's School in Parramatta, and also a private school in Toowoomba. It accused him of voyeurism, watching them in the shower. He was dismissed from the King's School in the mid 70s over alleged love letters he wrote to some of his favorite male students, although they weren't of a sexual nature. They're just saying how much he admired them and that how well they were doing. Alan Jones has, as a coach, because he did do a lot of coaching in his when he was a private school teacher, he had a reputation as being one of the strictest and scariest teachers that students ever had. I actually met a former student of his who said you're never bored in his class, though he was very imposing. So he's a very old school teacher. But though Alan Jones, he has his defenders. Like I said, he's mentored many athletes who have thanked him for his friendship and support over the years, and reject that he's anything but a supportive person and mentor. Now, these are just allegations. Alan Jones, through his lawyers, have said that these allegations are demonstrably false, and he's threatening defamation action. Kate McClymont, she published an article that there was in 2017, a 17-year-old boy who Alan Jones was helping him and his mother financially. He alleged the boy that he was groped at Alan Jones's rural farm, and the police made a complaint to police, but the police said it's your word against Australia's most influential broadcaster. So that was in today. So Kate McClymont, she's certainly not deterred, and certainly I think she knew, and the Sydney Morning Herald knew they would probably be sued if they published these accusations. They've all claimed that the 5 accusers, they're willing to to participate in a police probe, but a lot in when there's these Me Too accusations that come through the media. Why didn't you go to the police first instead of going to the media? Like I said, Alan Jones has his defenders, and of course, Alan Jones has been a target for many years by the cancel mob because of his outspoken views. Remember, Sky News cancelled him because they freaked out when YouTube deleted a couple of their videos that featured him questioning the vaccine. That's when he started ADH TV, which has grown to have a number of other network stars, such as Daisy Cousins, Alexandra Marshall, David Flint, and amongst other people. Peter Credlin said that the Alan Jones allegations are not the man I know and respect, because that article also accused him of being a misogynist. Remember, during when Julie Gillard was Prime Minister, he was secretly recorded saying that Julie Gillard's father probably died of shame because of the lies his daughter told in Parliament. And he had this metaphor as a chaff bag. He said he'd throw Julie Gillard and Lord Mayor Clover Moore in a chaff bag out to sea and let them swim back. And remember, in 2019, he famously said that I hope Scott Morrison's fully briefed to put a sock down the throat of Jacinta Ardern. If I see her on the TV one more time, I'll puke. I hope he's got a few backhanders ready for her. Though to Jacinta Ardern's credit, she didn't play the feminist card, just basically said, I don't have an opinion on everybody has an opinion on me. And I noticed a few of the alternate media types, such as Chris Primod, who's he's in the Australian Alternative Media, has a podcast. He's also pro-Palestine. He said Alan Jones is about to find out what happens when you don't go along with the approved narrative. And Ralph Pevette said Alan Jones is about to get cancelled. Why? Because he didn't go along with the leftist narrative. They're trying to do to him what they do to everyone who pushes back against the left and the elites who controls the left. If he promoted the narrative that the left wanted, he would have been hailed as a hero. You're going to have to wake up, or the West is in trouble. Now, if Alan Jones is gay, that's his personal business. It's not, there's no obligation for him to come out. Though obviously, if somebody is obviously, all relations, whether opposite or same sex, should be based on consent. But these are all allegations. Though over the years, the left, they have been widely hypocritical when it comes to Alan Jones's sexuality, making gay jokes about him that they wouldn't make about, say, a Tom Ballard, or Tom Ballard has actually been accused of raping another man, although he just simply denied it and said, I'm a supporter of Me Too, and that was the end of it there. So Tom Ballard didn't get cancelled when he was accused of rape there. So just shows you again the double standard. I remember back in 2019 that I wrote a article on the Unshackled, talking about the leftist hypocrisy of leftists when it came to Alan Jones. I'll see if I can bring it up now. Now Alan is in his early 80s. He is very ill a lot of the time. He has severe back pain, so he has constant surgeries, back surgeries. So a lot on his ADH TV is absent for a lot of weeks, and so there's a lot of substitute presenters, such as Fred Paul, who I think is definitely underrated. And there's also Jason Morrison, who's been filling in for him, the former 7 News Sydney director. Here it is here. If I bring it up, leftist hypocrisy in Jones' attack. I mean, they bring up the public toilet arrest, though I mentioned here that nobody holds the George Michael arrest, and well, he was actually convicted, George Michael, of public indecency and had to do community service. As I mentioned here, many comedy programs over the years, such as Chaser and Fat Pizza, have made gay jokes about him. And Triple J called leaks of his outtakes the closet recordings of Alan Jones, which they wouldn't say that about a left-wing gay DJ. And now the outtakes, they're sort of a whole bunch of, like, they're sort of similar to the ones when Bill O'Reilly said, "Fuck it, we'll do it live." And repeatedly, Alan Jones get pissed off at dust in the studio. He's like, "Oh, there's dust here." As somebody who maintains their own home studio equipment, they are dust magnets. If you don't clean them like every second day, they're just full of dust. Like the soundboard that I have here, that accumulates dust, so do the computer monitors and everything. So when you're maintaining your own studio, you do understand why high profile presenters lose their temper. All right, that is it for the Australian news. Now, let's go over to the UK, where Rishi Sunak is getting tough on migration, both legal and illegal. He outlined last week his plan to reduce net migration because their net migration numbers, I mean, they are even more obscene as Australia's, around 700,000 over the past year. So it's similar to Anthony Albanese's announcement. So it's promising to cut numbers by around 300,000 and make sure that immigration always benefits the UK, ensuring the NHS and our most innovative business always have access to the talent they need to succeed. So again, just window dressing and the abuse of the system through visas, and also stopping, he calls, immigration undercutting. So the minimum salary will increase by 48% to stop to £38,700 to stop employers intentionally hiring overseas staff for less than British workers, and stop employers over relying on migrant workers. Make sure those come to the UK can support families because, well, again, it's the same thing here, the family reunion. So that's part of why the minimum threshold, £37,800, that's around 75,000 Australian dollars, banning most overseas students from bringing family members to the UK. So, yeah, Rishi Sunak, this time, the Tories, they're really going to reduce migration. I assume that Rishi Sunak thinks that that'll really impress Talk TV and GB News. They will be praising the because they do seem to be easily impressed by Tories' cheap talk, or it's more like useless talk. And also Rishi Sunak, he's trying the Rwandan solution again, the safety of Rwanda asylum immigration bill. So this new emergency bill, it's trying to get around this Supreme Court decision that ruled that Rwanda wasn't a safe country for asylum seekers to be settled. And the new Home Secretary, James Cleverly, has been over to Rwanda to have some guarantees. So the UK government has so far spent £240 million on sending zero illegal asylum seekers to Rwanda. Now, of course, Rishi Sunak, he's not leaving the European Court on human rights, but instead it's called, I think it's called it's a some sort of exception that gets around the Human Rights Act and the carve out to get around Human Rights Act and the European Court of Human Rights, which for some reason, even though they've left the EU, the UK, they're still in the Council for Europe, which is which takes in the European Court of Human Rights. And amazingly, there is some the backbench Tories who don't like that there's these carve-outs for carve-outs in the bill to exclude human rights and European Court of Human Rights provisions. But you can guarantee on one thing, that the boats are not going to be stopped. Nobody is going to be sent to Rwanda. No asylum seeker is going to be illegal. Asylum seeker is going to be sent to Rwanda. Don't take my word for it. Take one of the UK Tories' own backbenchers. My favourite character, MP, Michael Fabricant. His frank admission on GB News.
But with polling now that Rishi Sunak is less popular than Liz Truss was when she was the least popular, if you see what I mean. He knows that he's got to deliver. And actually, I think Rishi Sunak's heart is in the right place, but the time for talk is over. It's time for delivery, and he knows that.
The question is it going to be enough? Too little, too late, perhaps?
There's going to be some there's going to be some emergency legislation, I think, this Thursday. So I'll just say to my colleagues, if you are hoping to get back to your constituencies, forget it, because I think we're going to have some legislation which will do what you've just said. That's addressing, of course, by the way, legal migration. What we also have to address, of course, is illegal migration. We made the rather silly promise, in my opinion, to stop the boats. We'll never stop the boats.
There's some refreshing honesty from Michael Fabricant there. And if only he could admit that his wig is fake, as Lady of Shalott says. Now, he denies that he wears a wig. He went on a dating show called Celebrity First Dates, and then Prime Minister Theresa May said that I'm not sure if he's the celebrity or the first date, because he is a bachelor, single, and the woman that he's on a date with asked him, are you wearing Boris Johnson's hair? And he says, no, Boris Johnson wears mine. Like, why can't he just admit it's a wig? Like, Donald Trump still can't admit that that's not his real hair. I mean, I think the only celebrity to admit that their hair was fake was Bert Newton. He had his wig fall off in TV appearances and at the Logies. Michael Fabricant, he's not a character. He's a real MP. The hair's fake, obviously. He's been the MP for Lichfield for about 30 years. He was a Boris loyalist. It's not just the hair that they had in common. And he also made the point that Rishi Sunak is now less popular than Liz Truss. I mean, so Keir Starmer, he's in an unassailable lead. He's in for a bigger landslide than Tony Blair in 1997, trying to bury the ghost of Jeremy Corbyn as Plumbers Blairism on steroids. So he upset some of the Labour faithful by making a pitch for Thatcherites to vote for him, which, that was a very, very... you can't say anything good about Thatcher on the British left still. Now, moving on to the Middle East. So Israel is with the resumption of their operation to destroy Hamas. They believe that they are making significant process, and they are putting out all of this vision of Hamas fighters. They say surrendering. It has been noted that they are in their underwear, blindfolded, chained together. So they've surrendered in the Jabal refugee camp. And now the IDF have said that they've done this to make sure that they don't have any weapons on them. I think to make it clear that the gay IDF soldiers are not planning to rape them as some sort of rape revenge for Hamas raping their women on the October 7th attack. Obviously, the World Health Organization, they've gotten involved, saying that the food and medical situation in Gaza is dire. I can't keep up. Have they been told to the Gaza residents move to southern Gaza or northern Gaza? I can't really keep up there. Now, over in the United States, since the October 7 attack, the universities have been hotbeds of pro-Palestinian anti-Israel activism. And so the presidents of MIT, Harvard, and University of Pennsylvania, UPenn, I should also say that MIT stands for Massachusetts Institute of Technology, they're all asked about their inaction on anti-Semitism on campus. But the answer that left everybody stunned was from the University of Pennsylvania president, Elizabeth McGill. Now, UPenn is an Ivy League college, so is Harvard. MIT is not. This was her answer, Elizabeth McGill, when asked whether calling for the genocide of Jews is against their campus policies.
Ms. McGill, at Penn, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Penn's rules or code of conduct? Yes or no?
If the speech turns into conduct, it can be harassment. Yes.
I am asking, specifically calling for the genocide of Jews, does that constitute bullying or harassment?
If it is directed and severe or pervasive, it is harassment.
So the answer is yes.
It is a context-dependent decision, Congresswoman.
It's a context-dependent decision. That's your testimony today. Calling for the genocide of Jews is depending upon the context. That is not bullying or harassment. This is the easiest question to answer yes, Ms. McGill. So is your testimony that you will not answer yes?
If it is, if the
yes
speech
or
becomes,
no?
if the speech becomes conduct, it can be harassment. Yes.
Conduct meaning committing the act of genocide? The speech is not harassment? This is unacceptable, Ms. McGill. I'm going to give you one more opportunity for the world to see your answer. Does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Penn's code of conduct when it comes to bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
It can be harassment.
The answer is yes. And Dr. Gay, at Harvard.
Did you see these, for those viewers, did you see the smug look on her face answering that question? Like she found the question or proposition hilarious. Well, she fucked around in Congress and she found out. She has now resigned her presidency at the University of Pennsylvania, and obviously we have found out, well, more people have found out, I should say. It has been clear to those with knowledge of how universities are, who university benefactors are in the United States. A lot of them are Jewish, And so when the president of an Ivy League college says that calling for the genocide of Jews does not necessarily constitute harassment on campus, well, you don't upset the people who are funding your absorbent salary, and so she is gone. And we have seen that a lot of Jewish individuals who give money to these colleges have withdrawn them over the conduct of students and academics on campus. And it's been pointed out, how come you're okay with the last 8 years of anti-whiteism on campus, but now apparently this is beyond the pale, now that it's against your own people, though you're fine with all the anti-whiteism, even though, well, basically you should have known that they were going to come for you eventually. If they're going after whites, then then they consider you white as well. They're going to come after, and they have come after, well, I should say the Jews after October 7. I mean, a lot of the supposed pro-Palestinian anti-Israel activism in US major cities is just targeting Jewish businesses. Now, let's go to the fourth Republican presidential debate, which was hosted by fledgling a new news network, News Nation, and they also brought back to the moderation stage Megyn Kelly, which obviously her main adversary in Republican debates, Donald Trump, was not there. So the four that remain standing, it is Nikki Haley, the neocon, rhino, fake libertarian, Coke money choice. There is Chris Christie, who is doing a very poor job at trying to stop Donald Trump getting the nomination, given he's far out ahead in the polls, and Ron DeSantis, who is last year's flavor, since Haley is coming second in the polls. But the man who is, getting a lot of the headlines for his truth bomb statements is businessman Vivek Ramaswamy, and he took before. I'm not sure if you've seen this. He took all the other three candidates to task for sucking up to Donald Trump and then running against him, and also all the conspiracy theories are true, basically.
With all three of my other colleagues on this debate stage, is all three of them have been licking Donald Trump's boots for years for money and endorsements. Ron DeSantis, you've been a great governor, but you would have never been one without actually begging Donald Trump for that endorsement.
And you attacked him in your book a year ago.
Same thing with Chris Christie as a lobbyist, begging them for COVID money for his special interests in New Jersey, prepping him for the debates last time around. These people are now Monday morning quarterbacking some decision he made. I think the real enemy is not Donald Trump. It's not even Joe Biden. It is the deep state that at least Donald Trump attempted to take on. And if you want somebody who's going to speak truth to power, then vote for somebody who's going to speak the truth to you. Why am I the only person on the stage, at least, who can say that January 6th now does look like it was an inside job? That the government lied to us for 20 years about Saudi Arabia's involvement in 9/11? That the Great Replacement theory is not some grand right-wing conspiracy theory, but a basic statement of the Democratic Party's platform. That the 2020 election was indeed stolen by big tech. That the 2016 election, the one that Trump won for sure, was also one that was stolen from him by the national security establishment that actually put up the Trump-Russia collusion hoax that they knew was false. There's a reason why I'm the only person on the stage who can say these things. That's what it's going to take, not people who are licking his boots one time and now Monday morning quarterbacking him and criticizing him when it's convenient.
Governor Christie.
See the moderators trying to shut Vivek down there. It would have been funny if he said about the Great Replacement, I'm living proof of the Great Replacement. I mean, that would have been the best irony. Now, remember, if you want to send a super chat to support the program and the Unshackled, I've put the link into the YouTube live chat. So Vivek, he has just appeared on the last day on Alex Jones' InfoWars, who has now been restored to Twitter after Elon Musk put forward a poll. Now, when he took over Twitter, he made it clear that he didn't like Alex Jones and said, he said that he didn't want to let him back because of his belief in the Sandy Hook conspiracy theory. Though Tucker Carlson sat down with Alex Jones for an hour. I think it was quite a long time, might have been over an hour in depth, and Elon Musk, because he owns Twitter X now, decided to watch it, where Alex Jones clarified what the Sandy Hook lawsuits were really about, which the $1 billion judgments threatened to bankrupt him. And so Elon Musk, he watched Tucker's interview and decided, well, let's have a poll. And of course, the result was that he would be restored. And so Alex Jones is back, and he's actually interviewed Elon Musk. Now, remember when Elon Musk took over Twitter? It was supposed to collapse within months because he didn't know what he was doing, and all the people were going to leave to Mastodon or Meta's Threads. And then, of course, when Elon Musk called out the ADL for funding mass migration, people who hate them, at being okay with anti-whiteism until it became anti-Semitism. Elon Musk was accused of anti-Semitism, and the usual people, Media Matters, who he's suing, advocated for the big corporations to pull their ads from Twitter X, including that most ethical and noble corporation, Disney, which brought back their former CEO, Bob Iger, to try and save the company, but didn't do is doing a terrible job. And so at a CNBC event, he was asked about Bob Iger withdrawing advertising from X, and Elon Musk, his response was blunt and principled.
Apology tour, if you will. That this had been said online. There was all of the criticism. There was advertisers leaving. We talked to Bob Iger today.
I hope they stop.
You hope?
Don't advertise.
You don't want them to advertise?
No.
What do you mean?
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go fuck yourself.
But
go fuck yourself. Is that clear? I hope it is. Hey, Bob, if you're in the audience.
Well, let me ask you then.
That's how I feel. Don't advertise.
How do you think that?
But Bob Iger, he is okay with Disney advertising on Meta's social media platforms, Facebook and Instagram, despite the Democrat Attorney General in New Mexico launching a lawsuit alleging that Meta services have enabled child sexual abuse and trafficking. Shouldn't Bob Iger, if he is worried about a social media platform having unsavory and potentially illegal content, he should withdraw his advertising from Meta immediately, because, well, child sex trafficking and child sexual abuse material is illegal. I mean, anti-Semitism, it is considered hate speech, but is not illegal in the United States because of the First Amendment. So what Facebook and Instagram Meta is accused of is way more heinous than what X is being accused of. And so Elon Musk has called for Disney to fire Bob Iger. So I mean, do we assume, and if the ads stay up on Facebook and Instagram, the Disney ads, that Disney is okay with the abuse of children? I mean, Disney Plus is nicknamed Groomer Plus. I mean, the only reason to have a Disney Plus subscription is because of the legacy 21st century Fox programs such as Simpsons, Futurama, Family Guy, American Dad, the X-Files, all of the new crap that they put out. I mean, Marvel is just with their multiverse, their microverse, and then there's got to be a minority LGBT character in every single show. I'm not sure if you saw the recent South Park mini movie, the Into the Pandaverse, where every Disney movie is put a chick in it, make her gay and lame. Now, another high-profile person who's in trouble is Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden. So after the sweetheart plea deal got knocked back from a federal judge, he has got 9 new federal tax charges against him. But now Hunter Biden, he is trying to play the victim, saying that there is a white ring vendetta against him and that Republicans are trying to kill him. And so he made those comments on musician Moby's podcast. So the pair know each other from rehab, with the musician also having attended Biden's art events. So the comments come after Ted Cruz labeled Biden a crackhead with no discernible skills. So, I mean, I've said previously, I feel sorry for Hunter Biden. He was the screw-up Biden's son. Beau Biden was the golden child, but the Attorney General of Delaware was being groomed to be president of the United States, but died from brain cancer that he caught from chemicals in Iraq. And like I've thought it completely undignifying, inappropriate for news outlets to publish those nudes of Hunter Biden. I don't want to see them. I think that's really yes. The fact that he has committed tax violations, the fact that he is alleged to have used his father's position as VP to get favorable deals in Ukraine and China, that is certainly corruption, abuse of office. If Joe Biden is involved, there's all this talk still that Biden won't make it until the 2024 presidential election. It'll be Gavin Newsom or Kamala Harris. So 2024, it will be a year full of surprises. So who knows where we will be by November 2024. I mean, by this time in December 2019, did we really think that by November 2020, we'd be in the middle of one of the great scandals and human rights violations of the 21st century, with the lockdowns and mandates to fight a virus with over a 99% survival rate. So they are still trying the virus scares, probably for next year. So remember, there's the not mystery childhood pneumonia in China, which is actually Mycoplasma bacteria. Also, they tried the new COVID variant earlier this year, but Alex Jones, when he called that out, they were like, shit, we better abort. There was the swine flu that was found in the UK. Now, do you know what they're trying again now? You'll never believe it. It's monkeypox, the super deadly clade. There is an outbreak in the Democratic Republic of the Congo of a monkeypox clade, which is 10 times more deadly than the monkeypox that spread all over the world in 2022. It's called clade 1, so it has apparently a 10% fatality rate, and the World Health Organization is very worried about this spread of it's not called monkeypox anymore because that's apparently racist and stigmatizing. It's mpox now. It's apparently killed nearly 600 people, mainly children, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo this year. Country has reported over 13,000 cases in 2023, which is double in the last peak in 2020. And so remember that this is a viral infection that spreads through close contact, causing flu-like symptoms and pus-filled lesions. Most cases mild, that it can kill. As we saw, it can also be sexually transmitted. That's how almost all cases in the West were transmitted. And now, of course, the monkeypox, mpox outbreak was largely contained in the West because of existing smallpox vaccines, though there is only apparently one vaccine distribution network in the Congo, so there's many hurdles there. The WHO is also worried about an outbreak among sex workers in South Kyiv because of the vulnerability of the population, as well as the risk of the infection spreading to neighboring countries. Now, even though it is mild and in the West spread through mainly sexual contact, almost exclusively in the West through men who have sex with men, it is still like 10 out of 10 for pain. Those who have had it will attest to way more painful than a COVID infection. Lady here, Charlotte says, you make your bed, you lie in it. Pardon the pun there. Paleoconservative Australian, who cares about the Congo? Oh, well, that is very, very racist of you. You should still, you should care about all disease outbreaks, not just when they make it to the West. Though I wouldn't advocate closing the border from the Congo. Border closures don't stop the spread of diseases, and it's not like we have a huge travel here and there from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, which is different from the Republic of the Congo. They're two different nations. And of course, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, it's not really democratic. Though it would be interesting. Yeah. I wonder if there's the sexual transmission in Democratic Republic of the Congo. Homosexuality is illegal there. So is it just through heterosexual intercourse that it's being spread? But yes, World Health Organization is very, very well worried. Dawn Browning says, is that Melbourne wheel still broken? Asking for guests. I think it still is. Yes, it broke down during Dan's lockdowns. Dan's lockdowns broke it, I think. All right, so coming to the end of the show, thank you for watching once again. Now, the Melbourne Underground Film Festival with Richard Wollstonecroft is now underway. It's at the Q Room in Thomastown, because the inner city venues in Brunswick and Northcote cancelled on him. So it began on the 8th of December and is going until the 14th of December. And Richard Wollstonecroft, the director of Melbourne Underground Film Festival, MUF for short, host of the report from Tiger Mountain. There'll be a fresh report this week. I just published his report on the uprising in Ireland. He was invited onto the great Sam Newman's You Cannot Be Serious podcast last week to promote Muff, and this is the trailer for it.
Standing next to me is Richard Wollstonecroft from Muff. Quickly, tell us what Muff is.
Independent Film Festival, troublemaker, anti-cancel culture, anti-woke.
And it's coming up shortly.
And like I said, a paleoconservative Australian proposed a Muff meetup, but Thomastown is way too far away. It's in the far north, which is Melbourne's Arabic and Turkish home. I don't venture as a southerner that far north. And well, the city is broke, and our infrastructure is still not up to scratch. It's hard to get up to the North. Dan's northeast link that he started is not going to be finished until 2029. And supposedly suburban rail loop is going to be making it easier to get to the outer suburbs, but the first part won't be ready until 2035, which is over 10 years away if it is finished, costing $35 billion. So yes, Melbourne is, I mean, it's not as bad as Sydney to get around. They've just had one of their newest pieces of infrastructure, the Rozelle interchange, has actually made traffic worse. So I hope that's not the same when Dan's Westgate Tunnel eventually opens in 2025. But yes, Melbourne, it's easy to get into the city centre, but not to the other side of the city, the north, and especially the north there, because the NIMBYs there don't like any good infrastructure there. But I digress. There'll be no theorists tomorrow night with myself and Andy Notch. We're on hiatus until the new year. We have got 2 strikes on YouTube, so when we start in the new year, we want to start with obviously a clean slate and Andy behave himself. So we will let you know when the theorist does return. But Tim's News Explosion, the final episode, News Explosion for the year, next Monday. I will see you then, 9 p.m. Melbourne time, on the Wilmsfront YouTube channels, and of course on streaming on Odyssey and Rumble. And all the theorists archive, the full 20 episodes, they are also on Odyssey and Rumble. So make sure that for the Wilmsfront, whether it be Wilmsfront, the theorists, or the main Unshackled channels, subscribe on Odyssey and Rumble as well. Because I noticed tonight that YouTube was very slow to send out the notifications. Eventually, you all managed to find the stream, which was good. Thank you so much for the discussions tonight, apart from the Auditing Australia talk. I mean, like I said, I don't follow the channel. I don't know all the e-dramas and that. I'm not particularly interested. So I can always do without that in future streams. So make sure you get organized for Christmas, and make sure that it's stress-free. Don't stress yourself out. And also, with a few hot days coming up, please do the common sense things: sunscreen, water. Don't be a stupid person and not do the basics, because there is stupid people who don't stay hydrated and who just suddenly collapse with heat stroke. So don't be one of those people as well. And Paleoconservative Australian, if you rewind the episode, I talked about the new fake migration strategy from the Albanese government. So it's pretty thorough tonight. Thank you, everyone. Good night. I'll see you next week. Stay safe, stay sane, stay cool, stay happy, and stay humid as well, because we always need that. Good night.
Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's news explosion.